corrupt!
Setting up intricate comedy spots and setting up these silly stories that take place over this weird, violent one-act play.
Kayfabe isn't dead, at least it doesn't have to be anyway. That's one reason why the role of camp in pro wrestling is important. There's a place in contemporary pro wrestling for the traditional meat and potato style wrestlers who work holds and play the traditional game. Some of them are fantastic and keep an audience's attention. What most want when they go to a wrestling show is the camp, even if they can't quite articulate that themselves. They want the exaggeration, the wildness, the over-the-top characters. They want to suspend disbelief a little bit alongside the realism. Without camp, pro wrestling could never survive, even in the 1960s and 70s, but especially not today, when film and television have elevated the presentation of drama, action, and horror to the heights we see in 2023. Wrestling wants to be both realistic and also a clear form of fictional entertainment, blurring the lines and the edges, and even the realism requires camp to a degree in the elevated form of pro wrestling. The best parts of the camp aesthetic in wrestling are those that play less seriously, though these less serious camp moments are no less effective or significant. While Sontag suggests that camp is anti-serious, she likewise writes that camp involves a new, more complex relation to the serious. One can be serious about the frivolous, frivolous about the serious. Someone who comes to mind here is Dark Sheik, one of indie wrestling's most important figures over the past decade. Dark Sheik is a trans woman who's made her mark on pro wrestling, even if she hasn't been on the payroll of a big promotion. Not that that matters. What Dark Sheik does best is, similar to my thoughts about Luchasaurus in a way, straddle that line between serious and anti-serious camp. She's a fierce wrestler who can command the ring, and she's even been in death matches. At the same time, Sheik dabbles in fun, lighthearted camp. She embraces butt stuff as a motto emblazoned on her shirts. She's also well known for her cosplay creativity, coming to the ring at times dressed as her favorite anime, TV, and comic book characters. Dark Sheik can do tongue-in-cheek with the best of them, and she can also put you through a pane of glass if you want to talk shit. Though every time I think of camp and its many qualities regarding wrestling, I cannot help but circle back to EFFY. Sontag writes, "Camp taste is, above all, a mode of enjoyment, of appreciation, not judgment. Camp is generous, it wants to enjoy." This quote by Sontag instantly brings EFFY to mind because of his desire to make pro wrestling an inclusive space for everybody, whether you're gay, straight, pansexual, trans, black, white, indigenous, or a combination of any and all the above and more. EFFY's annual Big Gay Brunch has been about putting a spotlight on underrated, underrepresented wrestlers who are part of the 2S LGBTQ+ community. However, it's also incorporated wrestlers who don't openly identify as part of the community as a way of showcasing allies. EFFY's in-ring style has come into contact with many wrestlers you may not have expected would be comfortable with overt queerness, involving them in the whole gimmick and bridging a divide that's existed for so many years between hetero and homosexual performers in the industry. EFFY's all about including people in the ring and in the audience. His camp aesthetic and sensibilities have proved that there isn't only one way to put on a wrestling show. There isn't just one way of thinking about promos or wrestling moves or entrances. This is the importance of camp in pro wrestling. It unmoors what we view and think of as the only way, and it opens up the eyes and mind to other possibilities. Like I said earlier, camp isn't inherently queer, but what camp shares with queerness is its willingness to subvert the dominant modes of comprehension. Camp wants to liberate us. Sontag writes, "Camp taste turns its back on the good-bad axis of ordinary aesthetic judgment. Camp doesn't reverse things. It doesn't argue that the good is bad or the bad is good. What it does is to offer for art and life a different, a supplementary set of standards." In essence, camp wants to change or reconfigure the very way we perceive art as well as life itself. In an industry that has for so long considered WWE the only option in terms of making it big, and that there's only one real correct path to success in wrestling, anything that positively shakes up the business is a good thing. That shakeup can be AEW's style of presentation, or it can be the increasing popularity of GCW and indie wrestling across America, as well as the world. Or it can be wrestlers like EFFY and Dark Sheik kicking down the doors of heteronormative culture within the wrestling world. Camp's subversion, to most of us, is a welcomed element in wrestling. It's as old as the hills and the industry itself, and it'll also ensure pro wrestling remains perpetually in our collective consciousness throughout the future.